I mean, what legally can be done at this point for Mr. Pinner and Mr. Aslin, remembering, of course, that the area where they've been tried and convicted is not recognised by any other country other than Russia?
Well, good morning. Legally, there's not that much that can be done. You're talking about a court which is not independent, which is not regularly constituted, which answers, no doubt, directly to Putin. So international law, national law, does not really account for such courts in terms of being able to intervene. If Putin was listening to international law, then we could go to the European Court of Human Rights. But if Putin was listening to international law, this wouldn't have happened in the first place.
That's absolutely right. And Mr. Jordash, I wonder if you're clear at all in the sort of the legal community. Who are these people that sentenced them, the judge that was involved in this? Do we know who these people are and what kind of legal standing they have?
Well, all we know is that they are officials or authorities of the breakaway Donetsk People's Republic, which is a separatist movement which is controlled by Putin and the Kremlin. So we know that they are acting at the behest of the Kremlin. We know that they've acted at the behest of the Kremlin since 2014. These men were arrested or detained or surrendered, I should say, in Mariupol at a time when Russia was attacking Mariupol. So they were transferred to this area in Donetsk at the behest of Russia, at the behest of the Kremlin. And this is a tactic, clearly, to place them into the separatist area and distance themselves to an extent from the Kremlin. But it's a transparent attempt. They are officials of this breakaway republic, which have throughout, as I say, from 2014, answered directly to the Kremlin.
And you say it's a transparent attempt. I mean, so in your mind, it's quite clear what's happening here. Are these guys going to be used eventually, do you think, as pawns to try and get some kind of prisoner swap, some kind of concession from Ukraine and the West?
Well, no doubt about it. I mean, the starting point is that they surrendered in Mariupol. The world watched as Mariupol was attacked by Russia, and the Ukrainians defended. The Ukrainian military defended. So it's crystal clear that these men were part of the Ukrainian armed forces. As such, they're entitled to combat immunity. They can't just be prosecuted, except if they are suspected of violating international humanitarian law. That's not the charges here. The charges are that they acted as mercenaries, that they were involved in terrorism, and so on and so forth. So it's crystal clear that there is this strategy, and it's crystal clear that it's a strategy to achieve something. And I think there's no doubt that the something is to squeeze concessions out of the international community, likely to be squeezing or making it more difficult for the British, the UK government to intervene and support Ukraine's military, something which Putin and Lavrov and the other Kremlin stooges have been talking about for some time, warning the West that if they kept intervening, there'd be consequences. And this is likely one of the consequences.
Yeah, and of course, hanging over this is that threat of death by firing squad. I mean, I've had a thing this morning, and I wonder if you can help. There is no there is no precedent there's no precedent to this, is there, as to where we are with the situation with these two men who've been captured, foreign men captured in a war zone who are now threatened with the death penalty in recent times?
Well, certainly there's no precedent since 2014 when Russia first invaded Ukraine. I think Russia's certainly ramped up the pressure, and of course it needs more concessions. This is the first time the West has really got engaged and to support Ukraine in a meaningful way militarily. So it's certainly unprecedented within Ukraine and Russia since 2014. And it's probably, I can't think off the top of my head of recent examples globally, actually. It's quite unusual. But then, Putin's invasion is quite unusual. His speeches about conquering land and Ukraine being a colony and not sovereign, these are also unprecedented. So we are, unfortunately, in unprecedented times.